Hello and welcome. My name is Margaret Gilbert from Corporate Contracts and I'm the Director of Corporate Contracts. So welcome, and these set of videos that you can find on YouTube and elsewhere are all about how to make procurement better. That is the aim and the goal. So welcome to the word on contract matters and about contracts. So corporate contracts is about three things. One is procurement consultancy, one is procurement training, and the other is in respect to contract matters books that I've written, a copy of which I have here, and you'll be able to find the more details about the contract matters book at the end of this video. So I work for both buyer and supplier. For buyers, I just look to ensure that the process is done well and to incorporate what's necessary into the procurement process. For suppliers, I assist them to understand what the procurement process is all about and to assist them to ensure that the proposal responses they put in to buyers covers both the technical and the commercial side that buyers are looking for. I hope that this gives you an idea about what corporate contracts is about. I look forward to hearing from you. Please feel free to get in contact through www.contractmatters.com or through my email, which is margaret@corpcontracts.co.nz. So look forward to hearing from you. And these videos is all about how to make procurement better. That is the aim and the goal. So look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for listening. Thank you. So I'd just like to cover off the bullet points of the previous video, and we talked about innovation and the need to be able to think innovatively and how we can work with, both parties can work together in terms of collaboratively and being able to sort of see what is possible. And by this way we can also manage the relationship and look at how the relationship can be improved. So it shows that there's a need to move from transactional procurement to transformational procurement, and this will assist in terms of working together. We also talked about social procurement and how we need to take into account the needs of the public and certain groups of people. And we also need to be ready for change, because change is coming, and to look at effective outcomes as to in terms of how we undertake procurement. We also looked at and talked about the benefits of technology, because there are benefits, and we do need to pay attention to the fact that change is coming. But we also need to take account of sustainable procurement and how that is going to work as well. And in terms of strategy, is that we probably should need to involve our suppliers in the strategic plan, because they've got good ideas and we need to make use of that, and we can sort of take that and work on that. And lastly, in terms of just general awareness, and for procurement practitioners to obtain training, especially in the area of soft skills. As in sort of the technical skills are well known, but the soft skills perhaps not so much. And as time goes on and into the future, soft skills are going to be needed. So these are the key points. So thank you. Hello, my name is Margaret Gilbert and from Corporate Contracts, and welcome to today in the video about the future for procurement, with a particular focus on technology and the future as to where technology can lead us. So I'd like to introduce Tricia Corley, and welcome for today, who's going to be sitting in, and so.
Good
To see you.
Technology. That's a big word.
It is a big word.
And it covers a big lot of things. In the previous videos, we've talked about a number of issues. One of the things that I raised was the electronic signature situation.
Yep.
So would you like to expand on that?
Sure. This is kind of an interesting area, and it's still not 100% solved. It's got legalities attached to it, and it's going to probably in the future land up with lawyers and politicians. But basically, in terms of New Zealand law, there is no statutory definition of a signature, which is a bit of a problem. It's more a case of the fact that it's coming down to for both parties to be okay and to accept the idea of things being sent by email, and so therefore in terms of accepting of a signature or acknowledgement that there's been agreement, and so that it can be accepted as gospel, so to speak.
So would it help if there was a letter or something written that says, yes, we will accept an electronic signature?
It would be better. I think it would be better to do an email, so there's at least a paper trail. So if there's any questions later, then it can be sort of shown to sort of say, well, there was an agreement between the two parties that that'll be accepted.
So what are the disadvantages of the electronic signature? I mean, I can think of a few, but what comes to your mind?
The main disadvantages is basically that it perhaps can be copied too easily and from one document to another. So while permission might be there once, it might not be there for the second, third or fourth time. But once you've got this accepted of a signature, then it can be used perhaps a little bit, I hate to use the word fraudulently, but in the end I guess that's what it is. And that the document can be changed easily because, once it's been signed off by both parties and it's accepting that is it. But I mean, if it's electronic, then who's to say that it can't be changed? And that's not a good idea. That doesn't give you too much confidence in case that might happen. So I guess it's coming down to a matter of trust.
Right.
As to whether you trust the other party, and you'd assume that would be the case since you're entering into a contract. There's no verification of who signed the document, but you have to assume that as a part of the conversation, it has to be, okay, are these the appropriate people who can sign off the contract, has the authority to do so, and that signature is the designated signature, I guess, for the organisation. And the last one is that there's no automatic equivalent to a handwritten signature in most jurisdictions. So it might work in New Zealand, for example, or some organisations, but that might not work too well when it comes to looking and contracting internationally. And that issue becomes even more tricky, really. So until, as I said, the legalities of it's been sorted on a wider basis, it comes down to relationship in a way and the level of trust. And that's a bit scary in a way too.
Yes. But if you've got a good relationship between the buyer and supplier, then the people who are signing would be personally known within the process.
Indeed.
So that would be helpful.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about contracts and in the previous videos, and how can you make a contract flexible?
Right. It's tricky, but it's starting to get to be a little bit more acceptable. So basically, the idea is: do you want to be stuck using that word in terms of a contract that is so fixed that it can be just that and nothing else? Now, that is useful, but if it's already a long-term relationship and you know that in the future there's going to be some change and additional requirements, then you really need to have a contract that has room for being flexible, room for being able just to sort of add things to or remove and add or a combination of. And it's just getting away from the usual type of contract clauses that are necessary, of course, don't get me wrong, but equally allow us sort of some room for movement in terms of how the relationship is, in terms of how the two parties work together. It needs to be specific, and I've always said the contracts need to be specific to the situation.
Yes.
But in this circumstance, there's even need to be more room for flexibility as to the how and the mechanism of how that the supplier or both parties is going to undertake and get the procurement outcomes required.
So this really comes back to that whole situation of one size fits all. So it's not sensible. You can have a template that has the basic things in it, but then to have other clauses that are more fitting to the type of service or goods and the relationship. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I like to take it away from. And contracts should not be one size fits all, and although there are contracts that obviously will have clauses in them that most contracts have, But I think the words we need to be using here is fit for purpose.
Yes.
As in specific to the situation, and that works. Now, if it's only a new supplier, you wouldn't do this. It would be just a traditional type contract. But if it's a contract that's been in place for some time, the relationship's been in place for some time, and going forward it's likely to be the same, then it's really a matter of making it sort of allows for flexibility. And often the wording flexibility means that not being so tight in terms of the wording around how the supplier is actually going to provide the goods or services. You allow them to get on and do, so to speak, rather than being very prescriptive.
Right.
Yeah.
Because if they've done some research and they've come up with some ways of doing what they're doing better,
Yeah.
wouldn't the buyer want to be part of that?
Yes.
Of course.
You'd think so.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So, in talking about the contracts, where is the best place to put the key focus? On the process or on the outcome, or something else?
The desired end result is the outcome. And so if the supplier has a way of getting to that outcome and it works and you've got confidence in that supplier, then don't worry about all the bits and pieces about how they achieve that. As long as they achieve the outcome, that should be, that should be okay. Again, it comes back to a bit of faith and trust that, you know that the supplier will do the right thing.
Right, but that would also be reflected in the
and it would
scope of work, wouldn't it?
That's right.
What about KPIs?
Yeah, and KPIs. KPIs stand for Key Performance Indicators, and it's always a good idea to have those in a contract. But this is sort of more what we're talking about here in terms of contract design flexibility, is more looking at performance-based contracting rather than just traditional KPIs.
Right.
But always useful to have anyway, just up your sleeve in case of anything that needs to happen. But it's really just more sort of saying, this is the overall result we'd like to see. We know you have the expertise. Go do.
Right.
Yeah.
So in that kind of situation,
with keeping an eye on it, of course.
Yes. Yeah. Because
don't totally give away sort of your responsibility.
No, quite, because that brings us to that whole area of performance-based contracting.
It does.
So, I mean, it's similar, but how does the performance management of the contract impinge on the outcome process?
Right.
It should support it.
It should support it, and the other thing is that sort of that comes back to not just necessarily paying on the 20th of the month, etc. It's more likely perhaps on milestones. It could be on actually performance of achieving a target if that's what's been agreed to within a specific time frame. It's based on performance. So in other words, if the supplier doesn't perform, you don't pay them. I mean, and that might sound obvious, but unfortunately, is that one part of an organisation doesn't talk to the other, and so sometimes the payments get made because the invoices come in, and so it gets paid. So the contract needs to reflect where that invoice has to come to, rather than just go to the finance people who will just automatically pay it.
Yes.
So it's just a different way of working, really. And it's a faith that the supplier will perform to the contract, but as I said before, you can't just totally opt out and leave them to it. There has to be some kind of check mechanism going on. Right,
so when we're looking at the future of procurement, do you see any changes between the performance and the outcome-based processes?
I think that performance-based and outcome stuff is going to be more likely to occur, and that it will be less sort of looking over shoulder stuff and sort of saying, have you done? So, which really doesn't help in terms of the supplier side of things.
And that comes back to the relationship,
building
the relationship.
That's right.